All right, good morning, folks. It's time for the next installment of Storytime with Nick. So, today's story is about the lady downstairs. This isn't going to be just one story, this is actually going to be multiple stories on the shit that this lady has done to us. So, this kind of goes from early 2014 when we moved in up to maybe about 2017, early 2017, when everything finally settled down. So, so the first couple months we were here, everything was normal. We didn't really think much of this place. Then one day we hear some weird music coming from downstairs. Didn't really think much of it because it was just what it was. So that music goes off like it should, and the night rolls around and everything's normal. A couple weeks later, the music starts up again, but it doesn't stop. It goes on for about like 3 days straight, and it got really, really annoying, but it did stop after 3 days. So, for a couple months at that point, we would hear it on sometimes and then off sometimes, on and off, usually going back and forth and that. Until the summer rolled around. Summer of 2015. Summer of 2015, this was. So, one day, the music starts up, okay, and we think that this is just going to be another 2 or 3 day thing, but 2 or 3 days pass, and the music's on. Another 3 days pass, it's still on. Another 3 weeks pass, we're starting to lose our minds because the music is not going off. Turns out this lady is on vacation somewhere, and she left this stupid music box on. And it's not even real music. It's like a 30-second sound clip that just keeps being looped over and over and over for fucking hours on end. And it would stop for like a minute at a time after playing for an hour straight, and then it would restart, and we'd have to go through this shit all over again. And this lady was nowhere to be found because nobody knows where the fuck she is. And we could tell that she was missing in action because her mail, they'd left it outside her door, and it was just piling up and piling up. There were at least, by the time she came back, there were at least 13 or 14 packages just waiting for her. I'm surprised no one took this shit. Well, you really can't because no one's going to be able to get inside this building that can't because we have a special key to get inside. But that's besides the point. So, we're getting to the point where my mom is starting to lose her sanity. And she's like, hey, can I just take your room for tonight? Because I really want to get a good night's sleep. You can just sleep in my room or something. I don't know. You can handle the music better than I can. And I'm like, alright, because I just really didn't care. I could sleep through just about anything. I was 12 at the time, so there you go. So I slept decent, and she slept decent. But that didn't solve the fact that the music was still going on. So she emails the owner of the owner of this place, whose name is Chris. And Chris is way too serious about everything. He's like, sorry, you can't email me about this. You have to file a formal complaint for anything to actually happen. So she's like, where do you put the formal complaint then? Here is a link. Put the formal complaint in so I can actually do something. Okay, fine. So she puts in the formal complaint. The lady downstairs has music that won't go off, and it's driving us crazy. And send in the complaint. Please do something about it. And just for extra measure, my mom hand wrote a note and taped it to her door saying, turn this shit off! But she didn't say who she was. Just so, I guess, the lady could be left in like, was it the person on this side? Was it the person on this side? Was it the person across the hall maybe? Was it the people upstairs? Because there was no one downstairs from her. Because she's on the first floor, and under the first floor is the garage. So, really? You have to do this now? Fuck. So, there's no one beneath her, but there is someone to the left and right in front of her. So she could assume that it was any one of them. So the complaint sent in, and the notes put on her door, And then about 3 days later, guess what? The packages are gone, the note is gone, and most importantly, the music is gone. The music stopped. And that was the last time we had ever heard it. But that wasn't the last time we had to deal with the lady downstairs. Because this was sort of more my favorite incident. So, one night, I'm just chilling. It's a summer night. It's actually really cool and nice out. And I'm just sitting there in my room. I got the windows open. I'm just listening to TV. And I hear some smoke beepers start to go off. You know, smoke alarms, whatever. I've always just called them smoke beepers. So I hear some smoke beepers go off, and I don't really think much of it because some people in this building just can't cook, and that's alright. Usually I'll hear them like once a week, and they go away in about a minute or so. I didn't really think much of it. So I'm just watching TV, and the beepers are going off, and they stop. And I thought that was the end of it. But then they start going off again. But this time they don't go off within a minute. They go on for like 5 minutes straight, and I'm like, at that point I start getting a little worried. But I didn't get too worried because if they had gone off, then that means someone is there to make sure everything's in order, if you know what I mean. So they stopped after about 5 minutes, and then a minute later they went on again. And at that point, I actually started getting a little paranoid because it's like, wait, what the hell's going on? These have been on for like 15 minutes. So I actually went to my mother and said, I have an uneasy feeling because I just had to deal with like 15 minutes of smoke detectors. And right before I can finish my thought, guess what happens? The hallway fire alarms go off, which is the main building's fire alarms. And I'm like, called it! But I was kind of actually nervous at that point because I had no idea what this lady was doing. So people actually start leaving the building, and I'm like, okay, shit, this might actually be a bit serious. So I'm like, let's get dressed and go out and see what's happening. And when we go downstairs, there is the pungent, very concentrated smell of burning food that just actually, if there's enough of it, if you know this, it'll actually make your eyes water. It did, at least for me. So I was like, oh my god, this is so strong. What the hell's going on here? So we get out of the building, and we see the fire guys coming in with 3 gigantic industrial-sized fans. And we see smoke coming out of the windows. So we're like, oh shit, something actually happened this time. And the lady downstairs is outside, and she looks really, really nervous. So she couldn't see me, but I was giving her the stink eye because I was right behind her. I was just looking at her like, for fuck's sake, what do you do this time? What did you do this time? Almost like I would do to you. But you don't burn the place down, do you? Well, she almost did, but that's a story for another day. That actually might be the next story I tell. But those were 2 incidents that I really enjoyed. Oh, the wrap up to the second incident. So they clear out the smoke, and everything more or less just goes back to normal. If it didn't, then I clearly would not be in this building right now, I think. But everything wrapped up nicely, and I still hate the lady downstairs, and she's still a pest that goes missing in action for at least 14 days at a time. I haven't seen her in about a month now. She's got at least 8 packages outside her doorstep right now, so she hasn't been back in a while. So we'll have to see what happens. As a final side note, when the boiler exploded, we assumed a lot of water went downstairs, and we were paranoid that the lady downstairs was going to come upstairs and tell us off for flooding her apartment. Well, that never happened, because I guess the water never made it down to their hallway, or it did in such a small amount that it couldn't really make much of a difference. Because I remember one night I was coming home from a walk, and they had their blinds wide open, and I actually looked inside to where the hallway area was, because their unit is actually arranged very similarly to how ours is, and I could see the hallway from their window. No one saw me, thankfully, but I could see the hallway, and everything looked perfectly fine, like nothing happened. I guess not enough water made it downstairs, if any at all, so we're basically in the clear on that. Thank God. So that's gonna wrap up this one. The stories about the lady downstairs. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.